Griff here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Again, welcome and thanks for joining me. Kind of, I'll say, sort of finishing up our series on this, how to jam alone. We've done a couple other videos along these lines where it's, playing by yourself, being able to sort of work in both some rhythm, get some harmony going, get some melody, some cool licks, all these different kinds of ideas. So in the last couple of videos, we've done examples that were in the key of E, and that is a really common key when you're playing by yourself. It sits well on the guitar, mostly because it has all these open strings and it utilizes, way down on the low end of the neck. So on an acoustic guitar, you're often limited at the 12th fret or thereabouts. So we want to get, as much as we can within what's available. And of course, you could play all this stuff on electric. I probably mentioned that earlier, but if I didn't, it sounds great on electric. You can play this stuff on an electric, and in fact, I may demonstrate that in a future video. Don't feel like you have to play it on an acoustic guitar. We call it acoustic blues, but again, really it's solo guitar. It's playing by yourself. So we're going to do kind of like we've been doing in some of these other ones. I've got two new licks for you, but these are in the key of G. So they're therefore in a closed position. They don't have the open strings to rely on. They're also a little bit different in that, first of all, they're very, very similar, and I'll show you that there's really two subtle variations on a similar theme. But the reason that I want to show you these two licks is because they fit very well around the chord position, which makes them very easy to move if you want to use them in A or B or C or D. And I want to show you how that works. So let's take a look at the first lick. Okay, so by and large, hopefully you can see that it's mostly the key of G. And you might think good old box 1. Or you might think box 2. And you'd sort of be right on both. Okay, it's a little bit major and a little bit minor. The first couple of notes, the B flat to B, 3rd to 4th fret on the 3rd string, D to E on the 2nd string, the 3rd and 5th frets, and the G are all out of the major, good old box 2 blues scale. But then we're going to come down with the 6th fret there. That's an F, 6th fret on the 2nd string. That's from the minor scale. But then we're going to go back to the major scale for the E, and then the D is shared between the two. The C at the 5th fret on the 3rd string is only in the minor. But now we're going to go back, the B flat to B is again a nod back to the major. The G at the 5th fret of the 4th string is again shared between the two. From here on out, it's going to be all minor looking. That's an F, the 3rd fret on the 4th string, D, F, G, B flat, and G. So you can see we have a lot of both, and this is very, very common to have the box 2 shape with the addition of that flatted 7th and that 4th on the top end. So you kind of go a little bit. You end up with a kind of a larger group of notes, but you'll notice that I don't play them all in a row, because that would sound kind of very chromatic. Right? So we have little things like that, which is a really nice kind of jazzy thing, but sounds great in blues also. Okay, so slowly, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2. Okay, now one thing that I want you to do that's very important is when you practice this, I want you to close your eyes. 1. Why would you do that? Because I want you to get used to the way the fingering works, okay? This goes with this chord, G7 chord. Okay, so what if I moved it, what if I wanted it in A? Fine. What if I wanted it in C? It would work just fine. And here's the thing. You should be able to close your eyes, pick a spot, play the line. Because it doesn't change. The fingering movement doesn't change. You can play it for any chord. It's exactly the same fingering. Okay, and if you can get used to that, because remember, this is a closed position. There's no open strings to get in the way. Open strings are a problem when we want to change the chord. Not so here. Okay. Now, the other thing about this lick is that it's specific to the G. If we're playing a blues in G, this will only work over the G chord. Okay. You'll notice that I have a G7 written there. That's on purpose. If there was no chord written there, that would mean that this lick could be used over any of the chords, but this cannot because of that B natural. Because we have some major blues in there with that B natural, we have to keep it to the G7. So if you wanted to play it over the C7 chord in a G blues, you would have to move it to C7. You could. Right? You could certainly do that, but be aware that you have to if you choose to use it that way. You will have to move it. You can use that lick over a G7 chord and a G7 chord only. Doesn't matter really what key it's in. That lick, the way I wrote it, goes over G7. It isn't going to work over any other chord. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you are using it over a different chord, you're going to have to move it. Okay, so how would we now put that together? Well, you kind of have an idea probably already. We're going to have a little 2-bar riff, and then we're going to have the lick, and then a little 2-bar riff, and then the lick. But I think you're probably getting the hang of this a little bit by now. So let's take a look at a second lick, because like I said, it's very, very, very similar in nature. And then we'll take a look at the riff. Let's check it out. Okay, so really the whole beginning part, the same, from the last few notes on, the G to the B flat, back to the G, and then a little F to G hammer on. So it's literally the last 2 beats is all that's different. But it's enough. It makes it sound different. And again, say I move it, and you could do a slide instead of a hammer on if you want. It's kind of fun. But it's a great lick that will work, again, only over a G chord. Okay, so you got to be careful with that. All right. Now, you probably heard it on the way in, but I have a little riff. Instead of playing a chord, you can play a riff that kind of outlines a chord. And one of my favorite ideas is kind of a way to, you sort of borrow from a bass player, but it uses a pattern that I use a lot. It's a major pentatonic pattern called the 3+2 pattern. Let me show you how it goes. Starting from a G, my favorite little pattern is to have what I call the 3+2 pattern. So the G and the A, and then I slide up a whole step to B. That's the 3. And then on the next string, my first finger falls on the D, and the E for my third finger. That's the 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. It repeats that octaves. We're not going to use all that. We just need one iteration of it. Okay, so I'm going to play the G, then I'm going to slide through the A to the B, to the D, to the E. And that's how the G7 chord goes. Then the C7 chord would start on C and do the exact same pattern. So C, E, G, A. So I have the G, the C, then I would of course go back to G 2 more times, then the C, C again, last bar on your screen right now is the D. So I'd start at the D, same thing, D, E, F sharp, right? D, slide up to F sharp, to A, to B. It's the same pattern, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. The C pattern, the G pattern, and the D pattern. Right? So you could go through a whole 12-bar blues that way. But of course, as we know, it's a lot more fun to put a turnaround in it. So we have one of my favorite turnarounds. Okay, so what we're doing here is similar to what we've done before with the open low E and high E. We're doing the G and the high G. Okay, and my third finger is going to park it on that high G, and then I'm going to bounce back and forth between the F on the 4th string and that high G again. So again, this is a situation where it really helps to use pick and finger. Then down to E on the 4th string, and bouncing off that high G, E flat, and bouncing off that high G, grabbing the G and the open D. Now you have a stack of zeros, right? That means we have a pick scrape, or a pick slide, or whatever you want to call it. And now I'm going to slide up to the 5th fret, and I'm going to grab a D7 chord. And again, a pick drag across some opens as I come back in to the riff. So nice and slowly, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. One more time slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1. And up to speed, you see it works better. Right, so now we have 2 licks, a riff, and a turnaround. So we have a song that we can make up. And again, you can use the first lick first or the second lick first or whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. You can mix and match these all day long. You might have other licks in the key of G from other courses that you're doing or other lessons or stuff that you figured out by ear. Whatever you have, it'll work. If it's in the key of G, it'll work just fine. Let me show you what it sounds like if I play it through. You can do probably something just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the first lick. Bars of groove. Second lick. Two bars of groove. And turnaround. And then I go back to the top. But I want to point out something really quick. Bar 10 there on your screen right now. Notice the last note. I hit a quarter note instead of 2/8 notes like I always do. I did that specifically to give myself time to get to the G. And I want to encourage you to do that. If you need that little extra time to get to that next note, feel free to leave out the last note of the riff. Okay, so let's go through it one more time from the top. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to keep going, right? Go around again. I won't do it and take up time to do it now, but by all means, when you're playing this and you're practicing this on your own, be sure to play it around. Play it around again, play it around again. There's a big difference between playing one 12-bar blues and that 12-bar form 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a row. It's important to get used to doing it round and around and around and around. It's an important skill. Okay, so again, you have a 12-bar blues form you got to keep track of, right? You have some licks, you have some chords, you have all the elements. You have music, therefore. Okay, so hope you dig it. Work on that, one lick at a time, put it all together, give it a shot on your own. Of course, as always, if you have a friend that would dig it, feel free to share this video with them, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon. Take care.